Welcome my channel. Before we dive into this shocking story, tell me where you're watching from and make sure to subscribe because we've spent countless hours digging into the real events behind Hagar Ashford's life. This is the story of a woman so strong, so clever, and so defiant that she was sold 12 times, each owner underestimating her intelligence and willpower, only to face consequences they could never have imagined. Hagar Ashford was not like any other woman on the plantations of Alabama in 1861. From the moment she was fully grown, she stood out not just in stature, but in the sheer presence she carried. Contemporary accounts describe her as a giant among enslaved people, towering over most men. With broad shoulders and a muscular frame that seemed sculpted for both endurance and strength. It wasn't merely her height that made her intimidating, it was the way she moved. Every step she took seemed deliberate, full of quiet power, a combination of grace and force that suggested she could not easily be restrained. On the plantation, where obedience was demanded through intimidation and violence, Hagar presented a problem that no one could ignore. She was simply too large, too strong, and too aware of her own power to be subdued by the usual methods of control. Her size became evident in the simplest tasks. While most enslaved women struggled with the physical labor demanded of them, lifting sacks of grain, tending to livestock, or hauling water from the river, Hagar could perform these tasks with ease and efficiency far beyond expectation. But it wasn't just about labor. The masters soon realized that they had a problem. Her strength gave her a measure of independence. Where others were easily coerced into submission, Hagar's physical presence made her a challenge to dominate. No whip, no chain, no threat could entirely contain her. Even when chained, her movements radiated a quiet defiance. She seemed almost untouchable, a human force that reminded everyone around her that she could not be easily broken. Her body became a symbol, both of fear and of fascination. The overseers who tried to manage her often found themselves unsure how to assert authority over someone who could lift, pull, or push in ways that defied their expectations. There are accounts of men literally being knocked back or overpowered when they attempted to enforce discipline. Though Hagar never acted out of malice, it was as though her sheer physicality demanded respect, whether or not they intended to give it. And that presence created a ripple effect across the plantations she worked on. Other enslaved people watched her with awe and hope. Hagar was proof that one could exist in defiance of the system, not only with mind and wit, but also with the strength to back it up. But Hagar's size wasn't just intimidating to those around her. It also gave her opportunities. While many enslaved women were subjected to constant labor and control, Hagar could navigate tasks in ways that others could not. Her ability to carry heavier loads or complete physically demanding work more quickly sometimes earned her a small measure of autonomy. Owners would attempt to exploit her strength, pushing her beyond normal limits, but her stature allowed her to resist certain demands. In a society that measured the value of enslaved people by their labor, her size gave her an unusual leverage. Of course, being a giant woman in a world built to suppress her also came with dangers. Her visibility meant she was constantly monitored, and any display of resistance or independent action drew immediate attention. Her size made her a spectacle, feared, respected, and envied all at once. Some owners saw her as a prize, believing her strength could maximize profit. Others saw her as a threat, someone who might undermine their authority or encourage rebellion among others. And Hagar seemed to understand this, moving with a calculated awareness of her own power and how it affected those around her. Ultimately, Hagar Ashford's extraordinary size was more than just a physical characteristic. It was the foundation of her ability to survive repeated sales, assert her will, and resist total domination. It was a presence that commanded attention and demanded respect. To the people who enslaved her, it was terrifying. To the people who lived alongside her, it was awe-inspiring. And to Hagar herself, it was the first and most important tool in a life defined by intelligence, defiance, and resilience. Her body was her armor, her strength her shield, and in a world designed to break her. It was the first sign that she could not be completely contained. While Hagar Ashford's size made her physically intimidating, it was her intelligence that truly set her apart. She was not simply a strong woman, she was cunning, strategic, and always thinking several steps ahead of those who sought to control her. On the plantations where she lived, obedience was expected without question. Yet Hagar seemed to have an innate understanding of human behavior, of how fear, greed, and pride could be manipulated. Her mind was as sharp as her body was strong, and this combination made her a force that no owner could fully dominate. From an early age, Hagar displayed a remarkable awareness of her surroundings. She observed patterns, memorized routines, and anticipated the movements of the overseers. When they expected her to follow a command immediately, she would delay just enough to assert a subtle control, never openly rebelling, but making them aware that she could choose how and when to act. Small acts of defiance, delaying work, redirecting attention, or performing tasks in her own way, allowed her to maintain a degree of autonomy that other enslaved people could only dream of. Every time an owner thought they had taught her a lesson, she found a way to turn the situation to her advantage. Hagar's intelligence also manifested in her ability to navigate social dynamics on the plantation. She learned to read people quickly, understanding who could be reasoned with, who relied on threats, and who would underestimate her. She built quiet alliances among other enslaved people, using subtle communication to warn or protect them when punishments were likely. In doing so, she became a figure of quiet leadership, someone others could look to for guidance and reassurance. Even under the constant threat of violence, her wit was her shield, as effective as her physical strength, and it made her both admired and feared. But her cleverness didn't stop at observation or strategy. Hagar learned to exploit the weaknesses of those who thought they could control her. Owners often tried to exert authority through punishment or intimidation, but she found ways to turn even these moments to her advantage. There are accounts of her feigning compliance only to outmaneuver her captors later, completing tasks in secret to avoid additional labor, or cleverly misdirecting attention to prevent punishment. She seemed to understand that intelligence in her position wasn't about open confrontation. It was about survival, subtle resistance, and making every interaction work in her favor. Her ability to outwit her owners repeatedly also meant that she could influence decisions without speaking directly. For example, she would observe patterns in how food, clothing, or work was distributed, and use that knowledge to position herself in ways that ensured her safety or comfort. Owners who believed they were controlling her were actually being influenced by her actions. It was a quiet rebellion one that required patience, foresight, and the ability to read human behavior perfectly. Hagar's cleverness allowed her to survive situations that would have broken others, proving that her mind was just as formidable as her body. Hagar's intelligence was also crucial when she was sold from one owner to another. Being sold was terrifying and destabilizing, yet she quickly learned to assess new environments, understand new authorities, and adapt strategies for survival. She could size up a person in minutes, anticipate how they would attempt to dominate her, and plan her responses accordingly. Some owners tried to use her reputation as a difficult woman to assert dominance, but Hagar had already calculated how to respond. Each sale became an exercise in mental agility, and she consistently managed to retain her dignity and autonomy despite being uprooted repeatedly. Even more remarkable was the way Hagar combined her intelligence with her physical presence. Her height and strength drew attention, but it was her wit that kept her in control. Owners who relied solely on intimidation often failed to recognize her clever strategies until it was too late. She would comply when necessary, rebel subtly when possible, and always maintain a sense of calculated independence. This balance of brains and brawn made her legendary, a woman who could not be completely subdued, whose actions left a lasting impression on those who encountered her. Ultimately, Hagar Ashford's intelligence was more than survival skill. It was a form of resistance. In a system designed to dehumanize and control, her ability to think, plan, and outmaneuver her oppressors was a powerful assertion of agency. Each act of cleverness, each subtle evasion of control, proved that even in the most oppressive circumstances, a mind cannot be chained. Hagar's legacy, remembered through these stories, is a testament to the power of intellect and cunning in the face of overwhelming adversity, a reminder that intelligence, when combined with courage and strength, can become a force impossible to ignore. Being sold once was terrifying for any enslaved person in the 19th century. Being sold 12 times, as Hagar Ashford was almost unimaginable. Each sale meant being ripped from the only community you knew, separated from people you might have relied on for support, and thrown into a completely unknown environment. Yet Hagar endured it all, using every ounce of her strength, intelligence, and determination to survive. The sheer frequency of her sales tells us something about her life, that she was considered both extremely valuable and extremely uncontrollable. Owners bought her hoping to profit from her labor or her reputation, but her defiance and independence made her difficult to manage. Every sale was a challenge, both physically and mentally, and Hagar met each one with resilience that left a lasting mark on those around her. The first sale was a shock. She was still young, barely acclimated to the expectations of plantation life, when her original owner decided to sell her. Hagar was strong and clever, but she had no understanding of the system she was now navigating. Yet even at this early stage, she displayed remarkable adaptability. She observed her new surroundings, learning the routines, the power dynamics, and the personalities of the people around her. By the time she had been on this plantation for only a few weeks, she had already begun finding subtle ways to assert her independence, small acts that left her owners both frustrated and wary. With each subsequent sale, Hagar's reputation preceded her. Word spread quickly through the network of traders, overseers, and other enslaved people. By the time she arrived at her third or fourth owner, People knew she was not a woman to be underestimated. Some owners approached her cautiously, hoping to manage her carefully, while others believed that brute force could bend her to their will. Every new sale tested her ability to read people quickly and adjust her behavior strategically. She learned to calculate how far she could push boundaries without triggering extreme punishment, and when to submit just enough to stay alive while still maintaining her agency. The challenges Hagar faced with each owner were different, but the common thread was control. Some owners tried intimidation and violence, others relied on strict schedules, overwork, or threats of punishment. Hagar, however, had learned to recognize weakness in the people around her. She would comply when necessary, but she also observed, remembered, and waited for opportunities to act in her own interest. At times, this meant bending the rules without breaking them, finding loopholes in the demands placed upon her. At others, it meant standing her ground in ways that left her masters stunned. Her intelligence and size combined made it impossible for them to maintain complete control. One particularly difficult sale took her to a plantation with stricter oversight and more punitive measures than she had ever experienced. The master was known for breaking the spirits of enslaved people through fear and violence. Yet Hagar, using both her wit and her physical power, managed to navigate the environment without being crushed by it. She learned the daily routines of her new overseers, memorized the schedules for fieldwork, and carefully observed moments when she could assert small acts of autonomy. Even in such a harsh setting, she retained her independence and continued to challenge the expectations imposed upon her. By the time she had been sold 12 times, Hagar was a master of survival. She understood human behavior in ways few could. She knew when to comply, when to resist, and when to strategize for her own benefit. Each sale was an education, teaching her more about the systems of power she had been forced to navigate. She carried the lessons from every owner, using her accumulated knowledge to protect herself and subtly assert her influence wherever she went. Her life became a series of adaptations, a constant negotiation between survival and self-determination. Hagar's repeated sales also had a psychological impact on those around her. Some owners grew frustrated, realizing that no matter how often they bought or tried to control her, she always found ways to maintain her autonomy. Overseers whispered about her cunning. Other enslaved people looked to her for guidance and hope. In this way, her life was not only a struggle for personal survival, but also a demonstration of resilience that inspired and challenged everyone who crossed her path. Ultimately, the story of Hagar Ashford being sold 12 times is more than a historical footnote. It highlights the cruel realities of slavery while simultaneously showcasing the extraordinary strength, intelligence, and adaptability of a woman who refused to be broken. Every sale was a test, every new owner a challenge, and Hagar navigated them all with a combination of strategy, courage, and awareness that left a lasting impression. Her life teaches us that even in the most oppressive circumstances, resilience, wit, and intelligence can carve out spaces of autonomy and dignity, no matter how often the world tries to take it away. Hagar Ashford's life was full of moments that left her owners stunned, frustrated, and, in some cases, downright terrified. Her defiance was never reckless, it was deliberate, calculated, and deeply tied to her understanding of power. Where others might have submitted out of fear, Hagar knew that showing her strength both mental and physical, could unsettle even the most rigid overseer. And that's exactly what she did, repeatedly. There are accounts of incidents so extraordinary that they became whispered legends among plantation workers, stories told with awe and fear for generations. One of the earliest notable acts of defiance occurred when she was still with her third owner. The plantation demanded she work the fields from sunrise to sunset, alongside dozens of other laborers. One hot afternoon, the overseer tried to force Hagar to carry a load far heavier than any woman on the plantation had ever been expected to carry. Most would have struggled. Some would have collapsed under the weight, but Hagar didn't. Instead, she lifted the load with ease, then deliberately set it down slightly off course, causing it to topple and block the path of the overseer's horse. The horse reared in panic, throwing the man into the dirt. Her calm, almost casual smile as she watched him struggle to regain control left a mark on everyone present. It was a subtle but unmistakable demonstration that she was not to be underestimated. Another famous incident involved a dinner hall confrontation with a new owner who tried to assert authority through intimidation. Hagar had been ordered to sit at a specific table, away from certain workers she considered allies. She ignored the command, sliding into the seat of her choice, and refused to speak or look away when the owner scolded her. The room fell silent. For the first time, the owner realized that his authority, normally absolute, was not enough to bend her. He resorted to threats, but Hagar's steady gaze and unflinching posture made him pause. Her defiance wasn't violent, but it carried a weight far greater than any whip or command. It was proof that her mind and spirit could not be controlled by fear alone. Hagar also shocked her owners with her ability to manipulate situations to her advantage without them realizing it. On one occasion, she was tasked with supervising a small group of enslaved children while the adults worked in the fields. She noticed a small oversight by the overseer, a tool left carelessly at the edge of the yard. Within minutes, she arranged the children in such a way that the tool accidentally fell and damaged a wagon wheel. When the overseer arrived, he was furious, but Hagar's calm explanation and the fact that she had avoided direct blame left him powerless. The incident became a quiet warning, even under strict rules. Hagar could find ways to challenge authority with precision, using intelligence rather than brute force. Physical displays of defiance also became a hallmark of her reputation. On one plantation, a male overseer attempted to physically intimidate her by grabbing her arm and ordering her to work faster. Hagar's strength was legendary by then, and she responded in a way that was both shocking and deliberate. She resisted the pull with a firmness that stunned the overseer, forcing him backward. She didn't strike him or retaliate violently, but the sheer resistance of her body, controlled, unwavering, and precise, demonstrated a power that many had never encountered in an enslaved woman. The overseer's face turned pale, and he never attempted that type of aggression again. Hagar's defiance wasn't limited to individual acts. It sometimes influenced larger events on the plantations where she worked. There were times when other enslaved workers would falter or comply out of fear. Yet Hagar's refusal to bow to authority inspired subtle forms of rebellion among them. They would quietly challenge rules, delay work strategically, or find ways to protect themselves from punishment. Hagar's presence alone created a ripple effect. Owners could not fully dominate her, and her courage and intelligence inspired others to question the system that sought to control them. Even when she was sold to new owners, Hagar brought her defiance with her. She refused to accept labels like obedient or compliant, knowing that such submission would cost her control over her own life. She would push boundaries in small but significant ways, demonstrating that no matter how many times she was uprooted, her spirit could not be broken. In each instance, her defiance sent a clear message. She was more than labor, more than property, and more than anyone could hope to control. Her intelligence and strength combined made her actions unpredictable, leaving owners fearful that even the smallest misstep could lead to consequences they could never anticipate. Perhaps the most important aspect of her defiance was its subtlety. Hagar rarely resorted to open confrontation or aggression, understanding that such acts could provoke lethal retaliation. Instead, she used strategy, timing, and her understanding of human psychology to assert autonomy. Her acts were shocking not because they were violent, but because they exposed the limits of the owner's control. Each incident, whether it involved physical strength, clever manipulation, or strategic disobedience, became part of her legend, demonstrating that true power lies in intellect combined with courage. Hagar Ashford's defiance serves as a reminder that resistance under oppression can take many forms. Her life was a constant negotiation of power, an ongoing challenge to a system designed to suppress her, and a living testament to the human spirit's resilience. Her actions shocked and frightened those who sought to control her, but they also inspired admiration, quietly changing the dynamics of every place she worked. She became a symbol of strength, intelligence, and courage, proving that even in a world built to break her, she could bend it, challenge it, and leave a mark that would be remembered for generations. Hagar Ashford's life, marked by strength, intelligence, and relentless resilience, left a legacy that has echoed far beyond her time. While the records of enslaved individuals were often incomplete or erased, the stories that survived about Hagar reveal a woman who refused to be defined solely by the cruelty imposed upon her. Her life became more than a historical account. It became a symbol of what it means to survive, to resist, and to assert humanity in the face of systemic oppression. Hagar's legacy is not just about her physical presence or her cleverness. It is about the indelible impact of her spirit, which continues to inspire reflection and admiration even centuries later. One of the most striking aspects of Hagar's legacy is the way she embodied resilience. To be sold 12 times, uprooted from every familiar environment, and subjected to the demands of multiple owners was unimaginably difficult. Most people would have succumbed to despair or broken under such relentless pressure, but Hagar survived, adapted, and even thrived within these conditions. Her resilience was not passive, it was active. She engaged with each new challenge deliberately, observing, learning, and strategizing to maintain autonomy wherever possible. Every sale, every attempt to dominate her, became an opportunity to assert her strength in subtle but powerful ways. This resilience is a reminder that human endurance is not just about surviving physically, but about protecting one's mind, dignity, and spirit against forces that aim to crush them. Intelligence was central to Hagar's enduring legacy. She was not merely reactive, she was strategic. She read the people around her, understood their motivations, and used that understanding to navigate an environment designed to limit her agency. Her cleverness was a form of power in a world that sought to deny her any form of it. This intelligence allowed her to anticipate threats, avoid punishment, and maintain a degree of control over her life that was nearly impossible for an enslaved person to achieve. In this way, Hagar's legacy is a testament to the idea that mental strength and strategic thinking are as crucial as physical power when it comes to survival and resistance. Hagar's strength, both literal and symbolic, also contributes to her lasting impact. Stories of her size, her presence, and her ability to defy authority paint a picture of someone who could not be easily subdued. But her strength was never just about confrontation. It was about commanding respect through action and presence. Her ability to combine physical capability with intelligence made her exceptional, creating an aura of authority that left an impression on both those who sought to control her and those who witnessed her defiance. Today, Hagar Ashford is remembered as a figure who represents more than individual power. She symbolizes the courage to challenge oppression, the dignity to assert oneself, and the resolve to survive in a system designed to erase humanity. Beyond her personal survival, Hagar's legacy also lies in the inspiration she provided to others. For those enslaved around her, she was a living example of defiance and autonomy. Her ability to resist oppression, to think independently, and to navigate dangerous situations with intelligence and skill would have offered hope and guidance to others living under similarly harsh conditions. She demonstrated that even in the face of overwhelming power, resistance is possible. Her story reminds us that acts of defiance, whether large or small, have the potential to inspire and empower those who witness them. In modern times, Hagar Ashford's life has taken on additional significance as a symbol of historical memory and recognition. Historians and storytellers who uncover her story highlight her not just as a survivor of slavery, but as a woman whose intelligence, resilience, and agency challenged the oppressive systems around her. She serves as a counter-narrative to the stories that reduce enslaved people to passive victims. Instead, Hagar's story celebrates a life lived with strategy, courage, and assertiveness, a reminder that even under the harshest conditions, human beings can assert control over their destinies in ways that leave lasting impressions. Her legacy also carries a moral weight for us today. In examining her life, we confront the brutality of slavery, the injustices imposed on countless individuals, and the ways people resisted in both visible and subtle ways. Hagar Ashford's story encourages reflection on how strength, intelligence, and resilience operate under oppression, and how these qualities can be celebrated as forms of defiance and empowerment. She is more than a historical figure. She is a beacon for anyone facing systems that try to diminish their agency. Finally, Hagar Ashford's legacy is immortalized in the stories that survive. They are passed down, shared, and retold because they capture something essential about human endurance and courage. The fact that we remember her today, centuries later, speaks volumes about the power of her life. She reminds us that even when the world tries to erase or diminish a person, their intelligence, strength, and spirit can leave a mark that resonates across time. Hagar Ashford, the giant woman too smart to obey and too strong to break, remains a symbol of defiance, resilience, and the indomitable human spirit, a legacy that continues to inspire awe and respect to this day.